Hello. I was recently gifted a copy of Battlefield 3, and I was excited to finally get to play this game. After playing Battlefield 3, though, I realized it was nothing like I thought it would be, and now I have a few things to say about this game. This is not so much intended to be a review of Battlefield 3, but rather a video in which I attempt to shed some light on the changes in the series for potential players who have only played the older games, such as Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 2142, which are the games I will be relating back to in this video. While this video may be too late for many people who bought Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 is coming up, and I do not see it being much different. Now, in comparison to these two games, Battlefield 3 does not feel like a Battlefield game. The overall feel of Battlefield 3 is an attempt to appeal to two entirely different categories of players. On one hand, they have the older players that they tried to draw back in by bringing back all types of vehicles and larger maps. On the other hand, they tried to appeal to the newer generation of FPS gamers that tend to enjoy a faster-paced, arcade-style shooter by changing the general combat style and the map layout of the game. They should have just gone with one or the other because the combination of the two simply does not mix. The end result is conquest games with control points almost on top of each other, and it feels more like a team deathmatch on a larger map. The maps themselves are large compared to Bad Company 2, but the control points tend to be packed together by old Battlefield standards. I admit I have not played Battlefield 3 for long, but in my limited experience, flanking a capture point is nearly impossible because you end up going too close to another capture point and drawing fire from there. But this problem is eliminated by playing on a lower population server. 64 players are way too many people for some maps, mainly the close quarters maps. Even some of the more open maps like Operation Firestorm and Karg Island get to the point where there's just too many people running around. 24 or 32 players seems to be a good amount of players, which makes me wonder who this game was really made for, but I'll get to that later. I don't even know where to start with the close range maps. 64 players on close quarters maps are an absolute nightmare. My first experience with Operation Metro, Battlefield 3's flagship map for Rush game mode, led me to believe that I was playing an earthquake simulator, because grenades, even if they explode away from you, and even teammates' grenades, shake your screen around. If you thought the explosives fest at the beginning of a Karkin match in Battlefield 2 was bad, you haven't seen Operation Metro. It also doesn't help that the close quarter maps are terribly linear. Operation Metro barely gives you routes to take to attack, and the few that it does are narrow hallways that lead to a small door, and the other is charging upstairs into a room where you will have dozens of opponents waiting for you with their sights right over the top of the stairs. Seine River Crossing is another terrible close quarters map. You get less than a handful of narrow roads to take to the center of the map, and the only way to cross the river is via two narrow bridges or a boat in the water that has little to no cover. Compared to another bridge crossing map, Bridge at Remagen in 2142, Seine Crossing feels like the arcade-style shooter and not Battlefield, and it is not really pulled off as well as Battlefield's main competitor in the FPS genre, dare I say its name. This is what I was getting at by them trying to please two completely different types of gamers. I understand that the money is with the fast-paced shooter, and businesses have to make money, but they really had something with the older Battlefield games. And now I feel like they have taken a step back by trying to change the series to a genre it doesn't belong in and they are not familiar with. But Battlefield 2 and 2142 never made it so the player's only option is a bottleneck.
I can feel you!
Okay, so there was that one time, but I didn't like it in Battlefield 2142 either, and that was a very minor part of the entire map, which otherwise give you free reign as to however you want to approach your target. And Battlefield 3 was only released with 9 original maps, 2 of them forcing you onto small paths, and I haven't even played all of the maps yet. These maps just can't compare with the old maps of Battlefield 2 and 2142. Now, Karkin from Battlefield 2 was a very close map, but in the beginning push, you still had a huge variety of paths to take. You have 2 big roads, an alleyway off to the right, you can go in the hills around the city off to the left, and you can even get on top of the roofs. And the same goes for Serba Landing in 2142. Another major difference in Battlefield 3 is the combat style. which could easily be summed up as running and gunning. In Battlefield 2 and 2142, moving while shooting was a great way to destroy your accuracy and get yourself killed. In these older Battlefield games, you should either crouch or go prone in order to get off accurate shots, or at least stand still. This is not the case with Battlefield 3, where you have a constant feeling that you need to stay moving or you die. Also, characters move much more quickly in Battlefield 3 than the older games. Again, I have not been playing for long, but so far, I have noticed that there is not much need for the semi-automatic fire mode. At medium to close range, it seems better to put more rounds down range than to get off fewer but more accurate shots. At long range, the increased mobility of players makes it very difficult to hit a person on the move, at least with the iron sights, and shooting stationary targets at long range is almost exactly like the older games. The accuracy of the guns isn't too great, but it never has been, so that's no biggie. I actually like the point-blank combat in Battlefield 3 a little bit more, because let's be honest, point-blank combat in Battlefield 2 and 2142 was pretty bad.
He has taken Silo 3.
The vehicles aspect of Battlefield 3 feels a lot like Battlefield 2. That is, whoever controls the vehicles controls the match, which I'm not really going to complain about because that is fairly realistic, and Battlefield 3 includes a variety of ways for infantry to take out vehicles, almost more so than Battlefield 2. Battlefield 3 provides players with an unlockable anti-aircraft rocket launcher at a fairly low level. The anti-tank rocket launcher can kill tanks faster than in Battlefield 2, and Battlefield 3 also provides the anti-vehicle kit with a decent weapon against infantry, because choosing the anti-tank class in Battlefield 2 meant kissing your ability to deal with infantry goodbye, because those SMGs are pretty crappy. Okay, remember what I was saying about it's understandable to build a game around where the money is? I believe that this game was not only geared more towards the players who enjoy the arcade style first-person shooter, but also console players. This isn't all that bad because there are decent console ports out there, but I feel that PC gamers were neglected with Battlefield 3. I haven't read anything about the developers' take on designing a game for both consoles and PC, so I could be dead wrong with this. But the first thing I noticed with Battlefield 3 is the lack of an in-game interface for multiplayer. It is launched from the web browser. I can't for the life of me figure out why they did this. Battlefield 1942 through 2142 had in-game server browsers, so I know that DICE can do this. The server browser itself is rather crappy. They do give you plenty of options for narrowing down results, but only about 4 or 5 populated servers initially show up. To get more, you have to scroll down to load more results, which are full of populated servers, then go back up to the top and sort by players. On top of all of this, there is a problem that I am having, and I have read that other players have had for over a year, where it says server loading forever and never loads the server. Solutions have been made, but why isn't this fixed yet by the actual company? The whole thing makes me feel like PC users have been shafted. And this makes me think about other things. Is this the reason why maps feel crowded with 64 players? Because they just took console maps, put the starting areas farther out while keeping the capture points at the same length away, and stuck 64 players in it? I'm not entirely sure, but for what used to be a PC-only game, I feel that DICE has somewhat turned their backs on us. On the topic of not knowing what developers were trying to do, there's the graphics in Battlefield 3. I'm not even going to try to be polite about this. Whoever is responsible for the graphics in the game should have a steel-toe boot driven into their scrotum at Mach 2. But this is a dead horse that has been beaten enough, so I'll go on. And can there be one game nowadays that doesn't have terrible Russian accents? Please. Alrighty, back to the game. If you come to Battlefield 3 and probably Battlefield 4 expecting good team play, you will be disappointed. There is hardly any team interaction at all. It is mostly everyone running around doing their own thing, like a giant team deathmatch, or rather a free-for-all, except you can't kill half of the players. This could be due to the large population of players accustomed to the arcade style of shooter, or maybe because there is no commander position. I don't know, either way it takes away from the game feeling like a true Battlefield game. Also, the online community isn't very friendly from what I've seen. I have been led to believe through forum posts that anyone who has a problem with Battlefield 3 must be a Call of Duty faggot, and if a PC player has a problem with Battlefield 3, they must previously have been a console scrub who cannot play without auto-aim. But in their defense, some of the complaints were stated rather immaturely. Now, I want to bring up one last very minor difference between Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 2 and 2142. And that is Battlefield 3 carries the M rating while old gamers do not. I can already hear people calling me a pussy or such, but please hear me out. I have no problem with profanity in whatever quantity, but I am wondering what the point of putting such massive amounts of swearing into this game was. It could have been to create a more realistic battle environment, but there are a number of ways to do this that could have been done better, such as give me a bottle of Windex to clean off that filthy lens in front of my face. My hypothesis is that they added the profanity to appeal to the crowd of so-called hardcore gamers who believe that anything that bears a T rating or lower is a kid's game. While this is a very minor detail, they could have sought other ways to improve this game first, because the old Battlefield games never had any blood or massive amounts of cursing. They were rated T, and they were infinitely better than Battlefield 3. Lastly, this game gave me a bad impression of what DICE/EA has become. Apart from what they now consider good graphics, there is the matter of downloadable content. If a person bought each individual expansion separately, they would have spent $75, and that is more than the original game. Of course, they do offer the premium game, which you spend $45 or so, and you get the game and all the DLC for it. Also, there are premium bonuses such as double EXP events that non-premium players do not have access to. Lastly, they have an option where you can just buy all the unlocks instead of playing the game to get them. And I know it's other people's money and they can do what they want with it, but this is starting to feel like a free-to-play, pay-to-win shooter, except you actually have to buy a copy of it. This makes me fear for upcoming DICE EA games, such as Mirror's Edge 2. Are the graphics going to be all washed out and not colorful like the first game? Is there going to be a first day DLC that you have to buy if you want Faith to actually be able to run? Things are not looking good. But hey, I hope this video has helped you to make up your mind about whether you want to buy a newer Battlefield game or if you just want to stick with the older ones. I personally would just stick with the older ones. But thanks for sticking around to this whole video and have a nice day.